So who was this dude, King Arnor? I suppose that's the question. And how did all this lead to the Stewards taking over the rule of Gondor? Well, in order to get to that, we should first explain a couple of things about the kingdoms of Gondor and, as you rightly said, and Arnor. A lot of people don't know from just watching the movies, for example, a lot of people don't know much about the kingdom of Arnor at all, and it's just Gondor is the main focus. So how were these kingdoms created and by whom, Dave? If I throw that question over to you.
Okay, so yeah, I was completely wrong saying Isildur. Isildur started the line of kings in Gondor, and his brother started them in Arnor. No,
You're very close. You're close. What about?
I know we have Minas Ithil and Minas Arnor, which is
Anor. Yes. Also,
Anor,
there's
sorry.
So there's Minas Ithil and there's Minas Anor, and Minas Anor sounds very much like Arnor.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit
very
confusing.
confusing.
As well. Yes.
So Minas Ithil was like Isildur's home at first, because that is like the what is Minas? Tower of the Moon, which is like Isildur's name.
Sure.
And then Minas Anor is like Tower of the Sun, which would be like Anarion, and his name means son of sun or something like that, right?
He is son of sun.
Yes, son of sun and son of the moon, which would be Anarion and Isildur. So yeah. So what was the question again?
Right. I'll clear that stuff up again anyway in a minute or two. But basically, who was the king before Isildur, Dave? I suppose that might help you.
I assume his father, Elendil.
So what did he found?
Oh God. Yeah, so they all basically escaped from Numenor when it was being destroyed, and well, one of them found Gondor and the other found Arnor. So I don't know which one was which.
Yeah, so basically Arnor, the kingdom of Arnor, was probably the greater of the two initially, and that was founded by Elendil, who was the High King, and that was at the
and that's
end
like in
of
the top
Second
left.
Yes, exactly. That's up northwest. So and then also Anarion and Elendil, the two sons, they together they founded Gondor, and
Anarion
Gondor.
and Isildur, you mean?
Yeah. What did I say?
Elendil.
Oh, sorry. So Isildur and Anarion, the two brothers, Isildur being the elder, founded Gondor. And Gondor was ruled jointly by both of these guys, by both Isildur and Anarion. But Elendil, as the High King, he was still the ruler of both regions, and he ruled from Arnor in the north. So
cool.
Kind of like being, the High King and then being like lower level kings, or being kind of like, I don't know, prime ministers or something there of Gondor. And it's cool, if you look at the map, you'll see that... what was the old capital of Gondor, Dave? Do you remember?
The old capital was it Osgiliath?
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got
okay.
Osgiliath.
That was where the kings resided, basically.
Yeah. So what happened was, if you look at the map, you'll see Osgiliath is at one point, and then on either side, both sides, there's these other little small cities. One of them was, as you rightly said, Minas Ithil and Minas Anor, and that's where Isildur and Anarion lived. They each lived in one of these cities, and then they would come to Osgiliath, and in the main hall there were two thrones sitting beside each other, one representing Minas Ithil and one representing Minas Anor. And so they would both sit there, and they would, just carry out their kingly duties. They'd go there for, press conferences and, things like that. Chair meetings and board meetings.
Interviews with Piers Morgan.
Yeah, they were like, come on, okay, we've got our press duties, we've got our media stuff going on. So that's what they would do there. So Arnor, as you said as well, was up north and northwest, and it was situated beside the elven kingdom of Lindon. So Elendil would have had dealings with Gil-galad, as he was an elf friend. And it was a very expansive kingdom. However, it stretched all the way from the Grey Havens on the coast over to near Rivendell. So just for reference as well, the Shire was like smack bang in the middle of Arnor. So if you think of the typical map, you'll see Mordor in the bottom right corner in the southeast and Lindon up in the northwest. So Arnor is just to the right of Lindon, and Gondor is just to the left of Mordor down in the south. And the northern borders of Arnor, so it's up there near the north, and its northern borders are bordering Angmar, which is famous for what reason?
For the Witch King. This
exactly.
is where he's from,
His full title is the Witch King of Angmar.
Of Angmar.
And so we know that that's not the most pleasant of places as well. It's a bit of a spooky spot, I suppose.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the Elephant Graveyard from The Lion King, you know?
Yeah.
Very scary. So
that's exactly how I would imagine it, actually.
Exactly. So anyway, Isildur becomes the king of both Gondor and Arnor after the death of his father in the Battle of the Last Alliance, and also his brother Anarion also dies in the same battle. And he intended to return to Arnor in the north and to leave Anarion's son Meneldil to rule Gondor in the south. After he kind of mentored him for a long period of time, he was like, "Look, you take over Gondor. I'll go back to Arnor and I'll do what my father did." And I'll rule both from there, and you can kind of just be like kind of my, sub-ruler there. And we see that in the Fellowship of the Ring, Isildur gets attacked by orcs, and that leads to his death. This actually happened when Isildur was leaving Gondor, and he was heading to Arnor to rule from there.
Yeah.
And he had 3 sons who were with him, and 2 of his sons were killed in this attack as well. So then Isildur's youngest son, Valandil, he escaped with his life, and he became the High King of Arnor. But he didn't claim the kingship of Gondor, and the 2 kingdoms became separated at that point. So Gondor continued to be ruled by the heirs of Anarion, and Arnor was ruled by the heirs of Isildur. And that's quite important, that they kind of get separated in that way. So Isildur and Anarion, then they kind of, Isildur, all of his line, then they go off in Arnor. That is the Northern Kingdom, and it ends up kind of falling to ruin. That's where we get the Dunedain. And then Anarion, he's got the line where all the kings of Gondor come from. So all those big kings that we're going to hear about, and these couple that we will hear about today, they come from Anarion's line. So seeing as Valandil and his heirs did not claim the throne of Gondor, the realms were split, but Arnor's ruler kept the title of High King, whereas the ruler in the south was known as just King. So there was still a small distinction between King and High King, but anyway. And just a small other note from the Lord of the Rings fandom.com of what happened to Arnor. It says here, after 800 years of peace, High King Earendur died in the Third Age 861, and his 3 squabbling sons divided the realm into 3 kingdoms of Arthedain, Cardolan, and Rudar. The eldest son, Amlaeth, his name was, claimed kingship over all Arnor, but was reduced to only ruling the region of Arthedain as his kingdom, while the other sons founded kingdoms in Cardolan and Rudar. Thereafter, the Dunedain of the north spent their strength in foolish petty wars, sapping their strength while enemies gathered in the shadows. So another note on what happened to the Dunedain. They were these like great men in the north, and their realm, Arnor, was eventually split into 3. The greatest of them was called Arthedain, and then there was loads of these like internal wars, civil wars, and basically it says here that they were just like kind of petty wars, it calls them here. So just something interesting there as well, like when you're kind of going, how did they just kind of fall apart? Well, that was one of the reasons.
Yeah,
so
just like kept dividing, getting smaller and smaller, and
yeah. Well, that was it. Got to those small 3, and then eventually just the whole thing gets taken over by someone that we'll see in a moment. I think you already know.